So thank you all for your interest in the Yenching Academy of Peking University. My name is Brent Haas. I'm Associate Dean and Director of Admission Affairs here at YCA. It's my pleasure to introduce our program to you. To give you a, pardon me, to give you a little bit of an overview of how today's information webinar will proceed, I'll give a brief intro to Peking University. I'll have quite a detailed overview and discussion of the program at Yenching Academy, and I'll cover our application requirements and timeline. And then we're very fortunate to be joined by two Yenching Academy alumni who will be joining us to share some of their motivations for applying to the program, their experiences while they were here, and hopefully a little bit about what they're doing now in their careers. We will have time for a Q&A session, but since this is a webinar format, you can, at any point in today's webinar, you can type your questions into the Q&A function, and we will address them in the order in which they were received. Now, the questions might be answered directly by admissions staff at YCA in the Q&A function, or we'll indicate that we'd like to answer that question live. And if you're really interested in asking your question through the microphone, wait until the end of our presentations and then digitally raise your hand, and we will allow you to speak and hear what your questions are. So with that having been said, let me have a sip of my coffee, and then we'll get started. Okay, Peking University is China's best and most respected, as well as oldest institution of higher education. It was founded in 1898 as the Jingshi Daxuetang, the Imperial University of Peking. This was part of a comprehensive political, cultural, and educational reform movement known as the 100 Days of Reform, led by the second to last emperor of the final dynasty in China's imperial history, the Qing dynasty. Although this reform movement was more or less a temporary failure, one of the lasting legacies was the founding of what would become Peking University. We are located in northwestern Beijing, just outside of the northwestern corner of the 4th Ring Road. For your information, Beijing has 6 ring road highways circling around the city. We are in just north of Zhongguancun, Beijing's tech hub, and a little bit to our east are our neighbors and colleagues at Tsinghua University. Just past Tsinghua is the Wudaokou neighborhood. Wudaokou is essentially the center of university student life in the city. Peking University's campus is breathtakingly beautiful. We are just now getting into autumn over here, so the leaves are changing. As you can see, a similar representation in the photograph in the upper middle. And the bottom left, that is Weiming Lake, which is most certainly Beida, Peking University's most scenic and most often photographed spot. Here are a couple of other shots of our campus as well. It's really a beautiful place to study, to live, and to work. Jingyuan Courtyard is a beautiful grassy area that is in the sort of central western portion of PKU's campus. It is historically and culturally significant because this was one of the core areas of a previous university that used to be on this space called Yenching University. Yenching University did not have any direct connections with Peking University. It was active from 1926 until 1952, pardon me. And when Yenching University closed in 1952, PKU moved from our older campus closer to the city center out to this lovely place where we live and work today. I highlight Jingyuan Courtyard because these buildings are where the Yenching Academy has our offices and classrooms, as well as our as well as our large event space and our multimedia lecture hall. It's so beautiful that the Yenching Academy has actually been adopted by one of the many cats that lives semi-wild on campus. You can see Feng Zhua there on the left. He lives in Jingyuan Courtyard 4, our administration building. PKU today has over 11,600 faculty members who are divided into 51 different departments and schools, as well as 10 national key laboratories. This faculty, along with the dedicated professional administrative staff at PKU, serves over 46,000 full-time students and over 4,000 international students. And at this point, I think it's very important to emphasize that after 2.5 long years during which international Yenching scholars were unable to get visas to enter the country due to travel controls related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We are thrilled to announce that as of the fall 2022 semester, student visas are reopened, and Yenching scholars are international Yenching scholars are either on campus with us in person or are in the long process of getting their visa, applying for their health code to travel, buying their plane ticket, their pre-departure COVID tests, or their post-arrival quarantine process. We already have about 40 or 50 Yenching scholars, international scholars on campus. We expect to have about 90% of our international Yenching scholars with us by the end of the fall semester or the end of the calendar year. So what is the Yenching Academy of Peking University? Most simply, we are a fully funded 2-year academic master's program focusing on interdisciplinary teaching and interdisciplinary research on China. We study contemporary China. We look at the recent past, more like the last 3 or 4 decades of the reform and opening period, and how the changes, policy changes, have brought about major alterations to individuals' lives, to the economy, to culture, to society, you name it, and how those domestic changes have reshaped China's position on the world stage. We are fortunate to have incredibly talented, interested in China, and interesting young scholars who join us in our program every year. I can personally attest to this, having run the admissions process for the last 4 years, as well as having the good fortune of teaching about 5 or 6 different courses in Chinese history to Yenching scholars. We're also bringing the best practices of interdisciplinary teaching and research methodology to the Chinese system of higher education at the master's degree level. And part of that is what I find a very fascinating process of defining what China studies means when it's done in China at China's top university and generally taught by leading faculty at Peking University. Because the history of sinology or China studies has generally been written as one that is non-Chinese, outsiders studying China, going all the way back to Jesuits in the late 16th century, and missionaries who then become professors at UK universities, and then area studies, the area studies model of combining the social sciences with the study of China. This is all generally outside of China, but what does it mean to conduct China studies research in China? That's part of the process that the Yenching Academy is leading and helping define this discipline. We are a residential program, so what that means is for the first year, all Yenching scholars are required to live on campus in the Yenching Academy House, a nicely renovated dorm that's specifically reserved for Yenching scholars. International scholars are able to choose to live off campus for their second year, and YCA will offer a housing stipend for international scholars. Scholars from the mainland and from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, however, are required to be on campus living in the dormitory for both years of the program. YCA's language of administration and instruction is English, so no prior proficiency in the Chinese language is required for admission. That having been said, since we are a highly competitive graduate program focusing on China, if you have previous Chinese language experience, training, if you have a degree or have taken a significant amount of coursework related to China, if that fits your profile, I suggest you emphasize it in your application materials. It's not a requirement, but it could be a competitive advantage. Pardon me. We also encourage our scholars to branch out from the academic offerings and student extracurricular activities within YCA to join the greater Peking University student community. We encourage scholars to take courses taught by other departments and schools at Peking University. Generally, that will be in English for most of our international students, but if you are a near native level speaker, you can take content courses taught in Chinese in other departments and schools here. A wonderful opportunity, but a distinct and a big challenge indeed. Let's talk funding. The Yenching Fellowship offers tuition payment. It offers accommodation in our dormitory for the first year, or a housing stipend of 3,000 renminbi per month for international students in their second year. 3,000 renminbi is roughly $715 according to the most recent exchange rates that I've seen. We offer a monthly stipend also of 3,000 renminbi for your living expenses. Again, another $715, give or take. We offer round-trip travel to and from your home city to Beijing in your first year. And we offer a basic medical insurance package. This is a Chinese health insurance plan for international students living and studying in China. Now, we are a 2-year fully funded program, and you should consider us as such. But we also have an academic performance review at the end of the first year. Yenching scholars complete all of their coursework in year 1, and year 2 is left for internships, research trips, designing and writing and defending their master's thesis. Now, we have some clearly defined performance standards, such as completing a certain number of course credits, maintaining a certain minimum GPA, not failing any core curriculum courses, and not seriously violating the regulations of Yenching Academy, Peking University, or the laws of the People's Republic of China. And as long as you meet those standards, you apply for second-year funding and you will be funded. So consider us fully funded for 2 years, but with an academic performance review. We also have plenty of other funding opportunities. There's the Dean's Research Grant in the first year for independent field research. We have opportunity grants for students to attend perhaps international scholarly symposia or conferences and present papers. In the second year, we also offer the Language Enrichment Fellowship for continued intensive study of the Chinese language, or if you're a native Chinese speaker of another language. And we also offer paid positions like teaching assistantship, office positions, and residential advisors for second-year Yenching scholars. Now, this is an important slide, and I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the research areas at YCA, because China studies as a fully fledged academic discipline is still at the early stages of development in the PRC. And so part of the process of us defining what China studies means within the recognized degree granting system of China's Ministry of Education is the following research areas. It might be called China studies within the disciplines. So these research areas are important to your academic experience here in 3 main ways. The first, at the admission stage. The second, when you choose a thesis advisor. And the third, when you graduate. So number 1, when you apply to YCA, you will choose one of these 6 research areas in which to conduct your master's thesis research. These are already quite interdisciplinary. I think we're all aware of the differences between legal studies and sociology, between economics and management, or history and archaeology. Nevertheless, you choose one of these research areas that will be your focus for your master's thesis. And as part of the admissions review process, we assess your previous academic degrees, the courses you've taken, papers you've written, publications you may have, related internship or professional experience, with an eye to assessing whether or not you are sufficiently prepared in the discipline, economics and management, literature and culture, to which you're applying in order to be able to successfully conduct graduate level research at China's top university. Now, what does that mean? It means that if, say, your degree or degrees don't clearly match up with the research area to which you're applying, then anticipate we'll have some questions about that and try to address those questions in your application materials. What this does not mean is that you can only apply to the research area for which you already have a degree or will soon have a degree. We want you to study what you're interested in and what you're fascinated in. But we also have a responsibility to ensure that you are sufficiently prepared for graduate level research. So for instance, let's say you minored in comparative literature, or you majored in comparative literature for your bachelor degree, but you're applying to economics and management. Now, right there, comparative literature to economics and management doesn't make a lot of sense. But if perhaps you had a minor in pre-business or a minor in economics, well, then that makes a little bit more sense. I hope this explains some of the important ways that we want you to think strategically about the research area to which you're applying. The second way that the research area is important is when you choose a thesis advisor. You will choose a thesis advisor at the end of your first academic year, right before you finish all of your coursework, and you will do so in conjunction with submitting a formal thesis proposal for your second year. Your thesis advisor must be a research expert in one of the aspects of the research area that you've chosen. So let's take law and society, for instance. If you're doing a research project for your thesis on, say, reforms in the Chinese legal system or reforms to the judicial system over the past 20 years in China, then it makes sense that you're going to want a thesis advisor from the School of Law. If, on the other hand, you're looking at using sociological methods to understand the changes to the Chinese family structure in the context of China's aging population, then obviously someone from the Department of Sociology will be better suited. And then finally, when you graduate, these research areas will appear on your diploma. If you are in economics and management, your diploma will say Peking University, Master of Economics, China Studies, Economics and Management, or Peking University, Master of Law, China Studies, Law and Society, etc. This is an overview of the core courses that all Yenching scholars need to take in their first year. The core courses are in the upper left. I'd like to give you just a little bit of an overview of them. China in Transition 1 and 2 is a 2-semester or year-long interdisciplinary introduction to contemporary China. The first semester is co-taught by leading faculty members at Peking University. We have modules, maybe 1 or 2 weeks on, say, the Chinese economy, on Chinese political system, Chinese society, Chinese culture, etc. These large lectures that are co-taught by PKU faculty are then immediately followed by breakout discussion sections in smaller groups. China in Transition Part 2, the spring semester, is more of a academic, disciplinary focused look at contemporary China with a guided field research component. And so in the first semester, the professors who co-taught the course then teach their own individual courses in the second semester. You choose to enroll in the course for which the professor has a research area that most closely matches your own. And then you learn about their expertise in designing research projects. And then through their guidance, you're able to conduct your own field research. And that's before you do your master's thesis research in year 2. So the goal of this is twofold, I guess threefold. First, interdisciplinary look at contemporary China. Second, introducing you to some key faculty members at Peking University. And third, giving you on-the-ground field research experience in preparation for your master's thesis in the second year. Now, the field study is a required course. It is a week-long, very intensive travel learning experience that takes learning about China outside of the classroom and outside of Beijing. You have a series of assigned readings, assigned lectures that you must attend, and perhaps documentaries or films to watch before the trip. And then we take everyone for a long week outside of Beijing. For the last several years, we've been going to Chengdu, the capital of Sichuan province in southwestern China. The China Studies lecture series brings in leading academics, artists, business figures, political figures, diplomats, to come to our academy to talk about their research interest or their careers or whatever topics interest them, and to give you a sense of just the kind of diversity, not only research topics and approaches to understanding China, but career paths that are available for those who are committed to staying connected to China throughout their intellectual and professional lives. Then academic writing is a series of seminars and lectures taught by different PKU faculty members that gives our scholars guidance in the step-by-step process of conceptualizing, designing, carrying out a research project, and building up to drafting, finalizing, and defending your master's thesis. And all international students are required to take Chinese as a second language courses. These courses are mandatory in year 1 unless the non-native speaker of Chinese has, within the last 2 years, taken and passed the HSK Level 6. HSK Level 6 is mainland China's standardized test for assessing Chinese language proficiency in non-native speakers. These next 2 slides show the elective courses that are offered at YCA in the 2022 to 2023 academic year. This slide is social sciences and economics. The next slide are the humanities. I want to emphasize, and please don't misunderstand this, despite the fact that these are in columns that are organized according to the research areas, you can take any elective course you want, regardless what your research area is. We encourage you to choose elective courses that obviously are interesting, that hopefully help prepare you for your master's thesis research in the following year, or perhaps are even ones that maybe are areas that you think you don't know enough and need to strengthen your knowledge base. Essentially, we are an interdisciplinary program. You can choose electives across the research areas. Here are some of the elective courses that are offered in the humanities broadly defined. If you're interested, I'm currently teaching history of the field, sinology, and China studies from a global perspective. And in the spring, I'll be teaching a modern Chinese history seminar that is using a retrospective of one recently passed highly influential historian of China, Jonathan D. Spence at Yale University, using a retrospective of his historical writings to better understand late imperial and modern Chinese history. The academic advisor system at YCA is very unique in graduate education in China. We have 140 academic advisors from the following 24 different schools and departments around Peking University. Most Yenching scholars will have two different academic advisors, one in year one called the faculty advisor, and then the second in year two, the thesis advisor. The faculty advisor is chosen, both are chosen by a process of mutual selection. The faculty advisor is there to introduce you to the faculty community at PKU, to learn about your developing research interests, to suggest classes you should take, and perhaps other faculty members that you should get in contact with for potential thesis advice. And at the end of the first year, you choose your thesis advisor. He or she will guide you through the process of carrying out your master's thesis research. Here you can see some shots, some photos from our fall field study. This is the core course where we take students the last few years to Sichuan province, to Chengdu. Now, when you're there, we visit sites of historical and cultural significance. Of course, we go see the pandas. Of course, you'll eat some delicious and spicy Sichuan cuisine. But it's not just a tourist activity. For instance, we go to a really fascinating and confounding archaeological excavation site, Sanxingdui, just outside of Chengdu, the city that we spend most of our time in. Now, Sanxingdui has a museum that a lot of people go to, and we'll go to the museum and look at the really impressive displays. Any tourist can go there, but Yenching scholars also get to go to the actual excavation site and get a guided tour of the work done by Peking University archaeologists who are involved in the detailed and fascinating work of excavating the actual artifacts themselves. Those doors only open because you're a Yenching scholar. We also emphasize integrating site visits and field research wherever appropriate in all of our elective courses funded by YCA. But here you can see the number of groups of students who went to different areas around China as part of the second semester field research semester of China in Transition. Our colleagues in the Student Affairs Department are also continuously improving our voluntary extracurricular offerings for leadership development, career development, and advice outside of the classroom. We are continuously better utilizing our growing influential network of Yenching Academy alumni. And one of the newest things we've brought in are we've created a professional advisor system where you sign up to be advised by different business leaders in different industries around Beijing. You can meet with them, talk about your resume, learn about their career path, seek career advice, and sometimes professionally shadow them at work. And after graduation, Yenching scholars are quite successful in doing interesting and significant next steps in their career. About 20% of Yenching scholars go on to further graduate study, often at the doctoral level, but sometimes law school, even med school. And they go to top universities around the world. Or if they want to move into a professional stage of their career, they go to some of the consulting firms, international organizations, banks, you name it, that you see listed on the right. These are just some areas that Yenching scholars have gone to after graduation in recent years. So far, I've really given you a pretty intensive academic and professional look into YCA. But I also want you to think about Yenching Academy as a platform for you to bring your interests, your expertise, your personality, and integrate it with the study of China and connect to other like-minded, talented, fascinating people and create something new. The Through Our Door exhibition is one such example. The Yenching scholar down on the bottom right that you see came up with an idea. She was a Harvard grad in art and philosophy and came up with an idea of wanting to center the space of Jingyuan Courtyards 3 and 4 and do a multimedia, interdisciplinary art, cultural, historical exhibition about the lived experiences and memories of people who had called Jingyuan Courtyards 3 and 4 their classrooms or even their homes, because Jingyuan Courtyard 4 was a women's student dormitory at Yenching University in the 1920s through the 1940s. So they combined archival research, photography displays, sculpture and art, and created a really fascinating VR exhibition. So if you want to scan that QR code there, you can get a virtual reality tour of this expedition and exhibition, and at least get a sense of where some of the learning takes place here at YCA. Now, this student and her 30 classmates got a proposal together, brainstormed, put together a proposal, asked for funding, worked with the administration. We funded them for this really, really outstanding and unique exhibition. Yenching Academy's flagship extracurricular activity is an international China Studies conference focusing on delegates at early stages in their career called the Yenching Global Symposium. And the Yenching Global Symposium was a similar product of brainstorming among the first cohort of Yenching scholars who said, wouldn't it be great if we could do an international China Studies conference? And they brought proposals. They figured out the way to make it work. We funded them and supported them. And now it is one of our most lasting and beloved institutions at YCA. YGS is conceptualized, administered, and run by Yenching scholars themselves. This year's Yenching Global Symposium was also conducted online because of travel restrictions due to the pandemic. We're planning for the next one. We hope it can be in person, but we'll have to see just what the policies are and how feasible it may or may not be. But Yenching Academy can be a platform for you. You can join the Yenching Global Symposium Executive Committee if you're interested. You can also brainstorm with other Yenching scholars and see what kind of fascinating things you can come up with next. Over the 8 cohorts of Yenching scholars, we've had over 850 students from 84 different countries and regions around the world join us. We are a highly diverse student body population, but of course there are areas that we need to improve our recruitment and enrollment. You can certainly see South America and Africa there's plenty of room for improvement. We're aware of that and are working hard to try to resolve that issue. We have had scholars who graduated from 350, give or take, top universities around the world. The universities on this list are the ones that have placed the highest number of graduates in our program in the first 8 cohorts. Most Yenching scholars' highest academic degree before joining us is a bachelor's degree, although we welcome applicants from those who have other postgraduate degrees, and about 20% roughly already have a postgraduate degree, perhaps a law degree, perhaps a master's somewhere else. Far and away the most popular 2 research areas at YCA over the first 8 cohorts are politics and international relations and economics and management. Law and society is a distinct but strong 3rd place, although in 2022, law and society moved up into the 2nd place over economics and management. The humanities occupy about 20% of the research areas chosen by Yenching scholars over the first 8 cohorts. Now, I want to emphasize this is not a planned breakdown of concentrations at Yenching Academy. We don't have a quota. Choosing one will not necessarily be advantageous or disadvantageous to your chances of success in your application. This just represents what the most talented applicants in any given year chose to study while here at YCA. In 2022, you can see we had 111 scholars from 27 different countries and regions. And these are the schools, the top 18 of the 96 schools that placed graduates at YCA in the 8th cohort, that is the intake of 2022. Okay, the last bit of my presentation is going to be about the application procedure. So we're a highly competitive graduate program that demands academic excellence from our scholars. Therefore, we do highly value an outstanding academic record in applicants to the program. It's not all we look for, however. We are also interested in your life outside of the classroom. Are there extracurricular activities that are important to who you are as a young adult and as a young scholar? Are you committed to community service? Have you started your own company? Are you a musician, an artist, an athlete? What kind of leadership experience do you have? Are you in student government? These are things that we want to know about in your application to get a better sense not only of who you are as a person, but also we want to know how you might be able to contribute to our student population outside of the classroom. Because we're such a diverse group of students, we highly value students who have a commitment to multiculturalism, who have experience in it, or at least a sensitivity to intercultural communication. And we are a China studies program, so we value a strong interest in the academic study of China. We have students who come here every year who have an Asian studies undergraduate degree and are on their way to a graduate degree and hopefully being an influential research scholar, whether it's a professor or perhaps a public intellectual, or perhaps someone working in think tank or government policy analysis. But you don't have to be that sort of profile in order to get into the program. We also highly value and welcome applications from and admit every year students who are highly accomplished in other fields, tech, AI, economics, business, but only at this stage in their academic or professional career realize that to go where they want to, they need to better understand China. Perhaps they have a good training in AI technology or AI ethics, but they don't know enough about how their field operates in China, or perhaps is being redefined by things that are happening here in China. We welcome those kind of applicants as well. And you need, like any graduate school application, you need to give us a good reason for why you want to come to YCA. There needs to be a sort of understandable narrative thread between who you are, where you're going in your career, why you want to come here, and how you think we can help us, how you think we can help you achieve your goals. Okay, so the minimum requirement for being considered for admission is completing a bachelor's degree before the end of August of next year, assuming you're applying for next year admission. Essentially, you can't go to grad school until you finish college. We have three sort of distinct application systems and application routes. The first is mainland Chinese scholars. The second is scholars from, potential scholars from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. The third are international scholars. For mainland Chinese students, PRC citizens, I would refer you to our website to see the details about application procedures. In short, you can only apply to YCA through the exemption from postgraduate entrance examination system, which unfortunately means if you studied your undergraduate degree abroad, you'll be ineligible to apply. Currently, only PRC citizens who do their undergraduate work in mainland China are eligible to apply. For international candidates, the deadline is November 27th, 2022. You apply online at the website you see here. You'll need to submit to us a certificate of English proficiency, the standard tests, IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge, unless you are enrolled, unless English is not your native language, but you are enrolled in a primarily English taught degree program at the university or graduate level. If that's the case, you don't have to submit English proficiency tests. We need to see your certificates of enrollment for any institutions of higher education, degree granting programs. if you have not yet graduated from them. And we need to see diplomas from any degree granting programs at the bachelor or postgraduate level from which you have already graduated. We need to see your official transcripts for bachelor's and or any other master's or postgraduate degrees that you've attended and or completed. You need a personal statement in English, max 750 words. This is your standard graduate school application essay. Who you are, why you're interested in our program, how you can contribute to the community here, where you're going in your career, and how you think we can help you achieve that. We have a statement of research interest. This statement is a maximum of 1,500 words, excluding citations. This is essentially your academic or research-focused self-introduction to the faculty at Yenching Academy. It is a formal piece of academic writing. You should engage with academic literature as you contextualize and describe what your research interest is or what your research interests are. You may have more than one thing you're interested in exploring, but I discourage you from putting in too many, because the more topics you discuss, the less depth with which you can discuss them. It can be a formal research proposal with a literature review, set of research questions, methodology, and tentative conclusions, but it's not required to. And you should only have a formal research proposal if you really have a very clear idea what you want to study for your master's thesis at YCA. Do not submit research proposals for former research projects or projects that you're already working on. This is about what you want to do when you're at YCA, should you be admitted. We want to see your resume or your CV, and we need 2 academic letters of recommendation. And these must be from associate professors or full professors or higher. This is the standard requirement for letters of recommendation for all top Chinese graduate programs. If you have other potential letter writers, assistant professors, internship or professional managers who you think can speak very highly of you, you can submit those as additional documents, but they cannot fulfill this requirement here. So those are the requirements for international applicants. The requirements for applicants from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan are slightly different in 3 ways. There's a separate application portal at PKU for the graduate school for candidates from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. You have to do both YCA's application and PKU's application. The certificate of English proficiency is required if you have not yet graduated from an English taught university or grad school. And the letters of recommendation, which still must be from associate or full professors or higher, must be from professors teaching in the field to which you're applying. And the difference is we just slightly alter our application requirements to match those of the Peking University graduate application system. Okay, that's all I have for you today. If you have questions, please reach out to us at yca-admissions@pku.edu.cn. You can see our websites. I really encourage you to go to our website, learn about our program, and understand and look into the profiles of current Yenching scholars. This will help you understand that we're not only a diverse program with a diverse student body regionally or nationally or culturally, but also in terms of academic focus in undergraduate or previous graduate degrees, professional and or internship experience, the kinds of projects that people are working on while they're here. We are not a one-size-fits-all program, and there isn't a single profile of an ideal applicant. Check us out on the standard social media sites internationally and or on WeChat. And so that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate your interest in our program. I appreciate your patience and time as I introduced YCA to you. We will now turn to Asma. There she is.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for accommodating me. And thank you for inviting me to attend this info session. So if you can't see me, here's my picture. So my name is Asma Bashir. Aishama in Chinese. I am a third cohort scholar at YCA, or was the third cohort scholar at YCA from 2017 to 2019. I majored in international relations and politics, and I was also granted a Chinese government scholarship, along with the Yenching scholarship. My background prior to applying to YCA, I graduated from a management business school in Morocco, so in international business, and I worked at the World Bank, and actually continued working at the World Bank prior and during and after YCA, which was quite intense. And following my graduation, I joined a different unit within the World Bank, and then United Nations Environment Program unit, and I'm currently working as an investment operations associate at the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is a multilateral development bank based in Beijing. And I got to know AIB while I was a student at YCA. So it was, I think there's a connection there. I think one of the reasons I was essentially interested in AIB was and getting to know the organization that was set up, I think back in 2016, was thanks to YCA and PKU. And I'm currently within the infrastructure department, Region 1. Which deals with investment operations in Southeast Asia, South Asia, and the Pacific, and precisely working on water infrastructure, which leads me to my graduate degree that I was able to enroll in during my second year at YCA, because I did the first year residential at YCA and then decided, unfortunately, to leave China to pursue another degree while doing my research remotely, which is very much feasible, but an intense experience I would not recommend to anyone. So I ended up doing my MSc in Water Science, Policy and Management at the University of Oxford. So why YCA and my motivation to apply to YCA? First of all, I think I was always intrigued by China as a country, an economy, as an emerging superpower on the world stage. And a fun fact is, I first visited China when actually I started at YCA. So kind of my introduction to China was through YCA and PKU. So it's not, I was one of the few students within my cohort that, I mean, not few, but we're kind of a minority compared to the others that were exposed to China prior to applying to YCA. But that doesn't mean that you have to have studied Chinese or China studies to apply to YCA. I was not, it was my first time being you know, in touch with the or visiting China for the first time, and so I think I'm very thankful for the YCA program for allowing me to use it as a kind of like a launchpad or a springboard to experience China as a country, as a culture, to learn a new language. It was, as Brent mentioned, it's mandatory to study Chinese language, which was very challenging. But I think it was also a requirement if you wanted to also interact with people outside of campus. So I'd highly recommend taking advantage of the Chinese language program at PKU and at YCA to improve and learn the language as a medium to interact with people and understand China better and the culture as well. I was very much interested in the possible new research opportunities in China, specifically within the environment and water sector. And as a YCA scholar, I really enjoyed being part of a tight-knit community of amazing scholars from all over the world. In addition to having that support system and community, we also had access to some incredible courses that had travel opportunities and field trips embedded within the courses themselves. So I remember some of the elective courses I took at the time where it was Silk Road. We were able to go to Dunhuang, and Gansu, and actually had exclusive access to certain caves. I think the Magal caves, and had exclusive access and interactions with the archaeologists and professors working on that site. In addition to that, I remember I went into a total of 5 field trips across different parts of China, which was very enlightening, enriching, and it kind of gave me a better understanding. And I think that's one of the strongest points of YCA, is that you have access to travel opportunities, to meet new people, to really understand and explore China thoroughly. Diverse research opportunities are also supported by generous funding from the office, and I took advantage of that as a student. And in addition to that, in addition to the supportive YCA community, you also have the Banjurans, the Laoshus, the office is always there to support the students in their different needs. And I think one of my highlights in living on Beira is having access to the Beida canteen, which is actually one of the reasons I've decided to come back to China is the Chinese food. Very delicious. Beida has a wide variety of Chinese cuisine, and I'm sure you'll enjoy exploring the different canteens and places to eat around in campus. I did an IR. So I come from I graduated as a international relations and politics major, and I did my thesis on water governance. So I did a comparative analysis between China and Australia, and I was very lucky to be supported by my professor at that time, Chen Wai Laoshi. In terms of, I think, a couple of tips that I have for students that want to apply, and hopefully people from Africa, because as of I double checked today, from Africa, from North Africa, especially from Morocco, I'm still the only Moroccan student within the YCA community, and Africans are very, I would not say rare, but we're a minority within the YCA community. And so I'd highly encourage Africans and North Africans, Moroccans, to apply to this program, because it was really a life-changing experience for me. And my suggestions for prospective students is to think about the following things. Why China? It's important to pinpoint what you want to research or learn and why you need to be in China to do that. Why China now specifically? Why you want to study in China next year and expand your current knowledge and network as well in the process, which is something that YCA excels at in introducing people to new organizations, to different networks. And then why the YCA program? I think outlining your appreciation and aptitude for interdisciplinary and intercultural study is also very important during the application process. And I think the last question is why you? I mean, why are you applying? I think as Brent mentioned, there is not a single profile. Like I think as YCA, we are a very diverse group of people, and I highly encourage you to explore previous scholar profiles on the YCA website or on LinkedIn, and basically making your case why you could add to the next cohort of YCA scholars. I think this is very important. And on that note, I wish you all very good luck, and I hope there will be plenty of new Africans joining the YCA family. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Asma. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Once again, welcome back to Beijing. Happy that you've just gotten out of your mandatory quarantine on your return. And good luck with the meetings you have coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, Rashdara, you ready to do your presentation now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see my screen? Perfect. Yeah, so thanks so much for having me, and it's a great pleasure to be here and talk about a bit of my experience with studying at Beta, as well as things I've done before and after. And I think, yeah, a couple of things are quite similar with Asma in terms of, I think both of us are in the development sector. But I think, yeah, I just wanted to sort of put it out there that I think people sort of work in a broad area of industries outside of development as well. So yeah, the first slide, that's me. I'm Nepalese. I did my Yenching from 2019 to 2021. So that's the year the COVID hit. So I basically spent a semester um, in beta, and then the second semester I did online, and then the second year as well I did online. So my undergrad degree was in economics, in theoretical economics. I went to NYU's campus in Abu Dhabi, so spent quite a lot of time in the Middle East, but also moved around quite a lot and spent time in New York and London and Ghana. So it's a global program where you travel quite a bit and sort of study one thing from different lenses. So I think that really sort of equipped me with quite a lot of interest in China, because I also spent some time in Shanghai during my undergraduate, and I got really, really interested in China because of that. Yeah, so I was doing loads of things at my AD, working with the student government, working with bike shops. So I fixed bikes for interest and passion, but I was also doing a lot of work on climate and sustainability, which is something I've cared about since a very young age. During my undergrad, I did a lot of internships. So primarily and mostly I worked for Baker McKenzie Australia, which is a global law firm. I worked for the World Wildlife Fund, Tamkeen, which is another law firm, sort of investment firm based in Abu Dhabi, as well as I was a young delegate for the UAE Ministry of Climate Change and Environment for the UNFCCC climate conferences, where I tracked Article 9 negotiations, which is basically on climate finance. And then I came to Beta right after my undergraduate degree. So I didn't have any gaps in between, so no work experience. But I did have a very strong interest in China's climate policy, and particularly their emissions trading systems. And that was something that I was very, very keen on. And once I got to Beta, apart from studies, I did quite a lot of other things, primarily with the Peking University community. And funnily enough, I actually took my bicycle to China with me. And I joined the PKU Cycling Society. So I was cycling around every Monday, joined the football club, and then was competing against other universities. We had a game against Tsinghua, a bunch of things as part of the Environment Society. So did a bunch of environmental workshops, talk series, as well as, yeah, as part of the running club. And I ran a lot. In fact, and I'll show you a photo later, but I ran a marathon in Hebei during my time in Beta. And yeah, it was a great experience, but I was only there for a semester. So I think that was sort of the part that bummed me out the most, right? Because of COVID and everything. And I couldn't go back. So yeah, that was quite of a bummer, but even notwithstanding that, I did spend a really good semester in Beijing, and I really, really fondly remember my time there. What I do now is actually very similar to why I went to China to study climate policies in China. I work for the Asian Development Bank, and I work mostly on carbon pricing and climate policies in Asia Pacific. And actually, I did an internship at the ADB during my time at Beta. So after your first year, you can apply for an internship. So I did an internship during the summer, and then I got offered a position right after my internship. So I actually worked my second year and then wrote my thesis on the side. And I'm still working there, and I'm based in the Philippines in Manila, but I still have quite a lot of work in China. Yeah, so the second slide, basically my motivation to apply is very straightforward. I think first on China's growing influence and power in international climate negotiations. So I was watching and following the climate negotiations very closely as a youth delegate to the UN. And I think I really sort of like could see what's going on from the periphery in the negotiations, and I really wanted to see it from the inside. The second is country in transition, and coming from the global south, I really wanted to see what does it mean for a country to transition from a developing to a developed country status, right? And I think you don't necessarily get a lot of that experience in a lot of other countries where you can also get a high quality university degree. So I think I really wanted to see that transition up front. The third bit is China's increasing influence in my home country of Nepal, both from an infrastructure point of view, cultural, religious, well, not so much religious, but bit. As well as sort of more geopolitical influences, especially in South Asia. And I think fourth, for me, like after doing my undergrad abroad, I really wanted to get back to Asia Pacific. And that was and has always been my sort of passion to come back and work in the region. And when I was looking at universities, I was mostly looking at Asia Pacific. And yeah, Yenching was sort of like actually one of the 2 programs I applied for. And yeah, I think it has been a really, really good entry point into Asia Pacific. In terms of Yenching thesis, I worked with Professor Howe, and I wrote my thesis looking at ODA, so official development sessions, basically on foreign loan, and comparing and contrasting that with China's influence in the backyards of traditional donors like the US or the European Union. And yeah, it was a very, very heavy quantitative research and a quantitative thesis. And I came from a background on theoretical economics, and it was difficult even for me. So I do think I think one of the learnings for me was the thesis experience was quite challenging, and it was actually more difficult than what I'd anticipated, or even, to be honest, what I desired. But yeah, I think it also depends on your supervisors. But I think, yeah, one thing that you need to know is it's a very academically heavy and rigorous process, and you can't take that lightly. Yeah, I think that's already started with advice for prospective students, but a couple of things for me. I mean, look, be honest to yourself and your professional and personal aspirations, right? I think that's really, really important, as to you need to have a very convincing case to yourself on why you want to go to China, as opposed to the admissions committee, because I think if you're honest to yourself, that's going to reflect with the admissions committee. Second, I think you should start early, and I'd highly, highly recommend reaching out to current scholars. Also, sorry, apparently said, yeah, make use of NY80 resources. If you're an NY80 student, please do that. But if you're not, make use of resources at a university. And if there's not, reach out. I think reaching out is fundamental. Like, people are really nice. They'll like really, really help you. Third is research masters. I think I already talked about this in the previous slide as well. Like, pay very careful attention to your writing samples or anything that you need to submit. And read about the research of current students and professors. I think a lot of people don't do that. And like, yeah, okay, you can read their bios, but I'd recommend you read their research. And particularly with the professors, like a lot of professors put their research on their website, and it's publicly available. So I'd done a lot of research about professors before I'd applied, and actually reached out to a couple of them and spoken to them about their research. And, you know, a couple of them, like, yeah, my research was really aligned with them. So I think, yeah, it just gives you a different perspective. Yeah, and finally, I think just good luck and be open-minded and honest to yourself. And I think it's such a great program. Particularly, I think Brent said that you can go back to China now, and I think that will be the highlight of your sort of master's program. So I'd highly, highly recommend applying. And I'm also more than happy to sort of help out if you want to reach out to me or something. And finally, I'm going to end my presentation with a bunch of lovely photos from Beijing. The left one, I think, was at the US Embassy. There's a photo in the middle when I had friends visiting from Abu Dhabi. The photo on the bottom right is basically the marathon I ran in Hebei, and I met someone who was wearing an NY Abu Dhabi t-shirt, and I was like, wow. The photo on the back is the PKU Cycling Society. Top right is the football club. And then bottom left is the environmental workshop series that we were organizing at Beta. So with this, I'm going to end my presentation here, and back to you, Brent. Thanks.
All right, thanks so much. I really appreciate your presentation and your time, and also really like the photos that you shared. For your information, this will be recorded and put up online. We also have other information sessions that we've posted as well that focus on individual research concentrations at YCA. With that having been said, we can go ahead and bring today's information session to a close. I hope you all please stay as safe and healthy as possible. I hope that you are interested and will apply to the Yenching Academy. And if so, I would like to wish you good luck as well. So Rashara, thanks so much for joining us. Take care, and we'll go ahead and sign off now. Have a good evening.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. You too.